Hello friends, welcome to JavaEE EJB JPA tutorial. Now you are watching a final part of the video, JPA entity. So here we will create a JSP client to create a savings account. So this JSP client will talk to the stateless session bean to invoke the remote method create new account. The remote method will make use of the entity manager and persist the information to the database. So this is how we developed this example. First we prepared a DB, pubs and Northwind DB, Microsoft supplied database. Then we picked this pubs DB, and inside that pubs DB we created this savings account table. Then we created a JPA project, and in that project we defined savings account. Then we learned different attributes like entity, table, column, ID, generated value. So in that same savings account we created getters and setters. Then we defined two utility methods, and in this example if you see we are not using this utility method at all. So we are using the create account, and that method resides on the bean side itself. So the bean will make use of entity manager, and it uses this entity to persist into this database savings account. The only method what we used here is this get PID. After asking the entity manager to create a new account, we call this get PID on the account object. So then we learned the JPA tools. After that we learned entity manager. So now in the previous video itself you saw how we used the persist method. So here in the remote interface implementation you can see the usage of persist method, and here we invoked the get PID method of our JPA entity. Now we will go ahead and create the web client. Here if you see in the page directive we are using the initial context. By this time you are aware of the role of this initial context. This is to create our stateless session bean. Then we declare the remote proxy savings AC bean remote. This is to invoke that new account creation method. Then we are making use of the naming exception. So here inside the create new account JSP we are defining a form field. This is our form field, and we just provide a static label 1 that says enter your name. Then in the next line we are displaying a text box. So here user will enter the name. After that we are asking the balance also. So the form will display the field initial amount, and then in the type is text, right? So in the text box we will collect that information initial amount. Then we have a submit button. So that's all. The form is simple. So the information submitted will go to the database. So next time when you want to retrieve the information, we can retrieve that information. So in the stateful session bin, previously we created a stateful session bin, right? There the information will be active between the request. Once a user closes the browser session, the information will be lost. But here, since we are storing it to the DB, the information resides here even after closing the browser session. Or user can go to a different location altogether, to a different computer. From there they can retrieve whatever information they submitted previously. And so this is the JSP form, and this JSP form submits this information to this same JSP. So the create new account. So this is the JSP. So we are submitting the content to this same file. So the form presents here in this file itself, create new account, and the information is submitted here to this same form. So once information is submitted, we will see that in the next slide. We will access the remote bean, saving account bean remote, and to that bean we will supply these two information. Here user is supplying the name and initial amount, right? So we will take these two values, and when we are calling the remote object, when we are calling the remote method, we will supply these two information. And the bean object will make use of the persistent manager, and it will use this extracted information and it will send it to the persistent manager. Persistent manager will persist the entity to the database. So for now we created the form. This will be our form. So inside the form, so when the form is presented for the first time, it will present the form with all blank. User will fill the content, they will click the submit button, the form will run for the second time. This time when we ask for the get parameter person name, so that's the name we gave for the first text box, it will give the string stating the information supplied by the user. So the name will be here. Similarly, we are having a balance in string, later we will convert it. So both the informations are in hand at this moment. Next, we check the person name is not equal to null, and it is not empty also. So this is just for processing. So if that is the case, the form is not running for the first time. So the form already ran and the user supplied values, they clicked submit. So that means it's a second run, and when the person name is not null and if it contains valid value, we are coming here inside and we are creating the initial context. So in the previous two example, we created initial context and we accessed our remote bean, right? The same way here we are creating the saving account stateless session bean, and we are accessing it through the proxy saving account bean remote. So we are typecasting it, and in our hand now the bean object is the proxy for the bean object is in our hand at this moment here. Next, if you see initial balance, that's here, initial balance, it's in string format and we are converting it to the int value. So first we are creating a new integer, from there we are extracting the int value. You can use other best method also. Here anyhow we are creating a new integer instance and we are extracting the value. After that, if you see here account mgr, so this is our remote bean, right? here account manager dot new account. So we are making call to the bean method, remote bean method, new account, and we pass the information whatever we extracted. So person name is here, and we are passing that person name. Here it is init balance string that we converted it as integer balance. So this is second, and we are passing it here. So here we are invoking the method of our remote object. So the remote object here is the actual object. Actual object is SavingsAc bean. So from our JSP file, we are using the SavingsAc bean. It's a proxy, and it maps to the real object in the server. Let's say SACB, saving account bean real object. Then we are making call to new account. That means it looks like here we are making call to the proxy, but it will be delegated to the object living in the server pool. And here we are making call to the new account. And inside the new account, if you see, we make use of the EntityManager to persist the bean information. Here these two are going as a parameter, right? What we will do, we will create a EntityManager instance. So that is a savings account, and then we will populate these two incoming parameter into that savings account. Then we will give that to the EntityManager.persist method. Then remaining stuff EntityManager will take care, and it will store the record into the database. So database will now have that particular table will have the new record. So that's how here the transformations are going on. To text field information gone to the remote server. There it is passed, and a new instance of JPA entity is created, and these two informations are populated. And through EntityManager, we are asking to persist the entity in the sense the entity instance, which is populated by the parameter whatever here user is supplied through the HTML form. Alright, here new account manager or new account. So that's just a remote method. Persist all those informations are hidden here in the server side. Once the persist manager persists it, it returns the integer ID of the new record, this part, new record, and that is returned back. Here we are getting that ID in our client. So that's a return value, right? The entity class saving account is our entity class. Saving account bean is our stateless session bean instance. The saving account is returning the new ID of the record or new record, and that's handed over to saving account bean, and saving account bean returns, and the return value is stored here. Then we make use of this return value, and remember this is JSP file, right? We are using the print writer object out.println, account created, static text, account holder person ID, static text, HTML text still static, style and other stuff we are using. This is the dynamic content. So whatever is returned, we are placing that in between h2 tag, and h2 tag is giving some style attribute. Alright, so once user clicks the submit button, they will get a response back, and in the response they will see account created, and they will see the ID of the new record. So in user perspective, if you see, first they will make a request to get the JSP file, and JSP file will display the form. User fills the content and submits it. Then they will get a response back stating new account created, and this is the ID of the account. Alright, now we will go to the demo and implement this. Now this time we need to create a new JSP file, and the correct project for that is EJB Web. So this is our dynamic web application, right? We already have shopping cart, and now we will create a new JSP file. So if we are not seeing this, always use the other window and choose JSP, and it will filter out. From there you can select and go ahead. So JSP file, and here we will name this JSP file as create new account.jsp. We will go with this JSP with HTML markup template. So first we will place the required directive. Then we create our HTML form inside the body. So you can download this code from the video description, and then we write our JSP processing. Now we will run this. Here we will check. Okay, savings AC bean remote, saving account bean. Okay, now we will start the server. So alright, now we will access our create new JSP account. Before that, so here I opened the pubs database in SQL Server, and you can see at present we have no entry in the savings account table. Here we are inside the management studio of SQL Server, and the table doesn't have any record at this moment. Here we will run this form, create new account, run as run on server. We will copy this. We will run it on an external browser. So initial amount is $1,200. So you can see here account created, account holder personal ID is 1. So account created, account holder personal ID is 2. Now if I query, I can see the data is persisted into the savings account, and the route it take is from this create account JSP. If you see, we are making call to saving account remote beans new account. So it goes to this through this interface we are accessing it, and inside the new account method, if you see here, we are creating a new instance of our entity. So this one is from our entity project saving account, and whatever value user gave through the form, that we are setting it to this entity. After that, we are giving this entity to the persistent manager. Persistent manager instance is created here through the annotation, and when we ask for persist, it will persist this entity. This is the entity, right? Account entity is persisted to the database. So in the demo you saw we submitted the form 2 times. That means in the saving account bean method, in the saving account bean, we created 2 instances. That means when we submitted for the first time, here there is a new keyword, right? So one instance is created and that is persisted. Second time we created a second instance and we persisted that. So as already explained in the theory, each instance will represent a row, or each instance will map to a row. So here since the instance is new, EntityManager created a new row, and so that's how here we persisted to information. Alright, now we will go to the JPA perspective. Window perspective, we'll say reset perspective. We will stop our server. So once the project is finished, you can take backup of your workspace. You can zip your workspace and keep it separately. At the same time, you can zip your runtime environment also. Runtime means the wildfire runtime environment. You can take a backup of that as well, because as part of prerequisite, if you are setting up the SQL Server DB connection, you can take a backup of your wildfire runtime and you can keep it safe at some other location. So when you are proceeding with the next few videos, and if you collapsed something, that way you can restore it from the backup, and you no need to redo the action of setting up the database in the wildfire environment. The same way, setting up all the project requirements on the workspace. So if your workspace is collapsed, you can take the backup, and your backup will have these projects, and you no need to recreate all this stuff. Why? Because in the demos we are using the previously created projects, right? So that's why you have to take a backup once your sub-series is finished. That's all here in this video. So we ended up with the sub-series of JPA entity. In the next video, we will see how to use the EntityManager to achieve other functionality of deleting the saving account and modifying the account information, all those stuff. That's all here. Thank you for watching. Bye.